Before we get started with this week's content, please, if you haven't done so already, like, comment, and smash that subscribe button. Now, without further ado, enjoy this week's show. It was just past 9 p.m. when Daniel left his friend's place, deciding to walk home through the old Pine Hollow Trail, the shortcut he'd taken 100 times. The night was humid, thick, with that eerie stillness that comes just before a storm. Crickets had gone silent. The trees didn't sway, not a single breeze. As Daniel passed the rusted fence near the trailhead, thunder cracked far off in the distance, a low, guttural rumble that seemed to roll beneath his feet. He hesitated, but home was only 15 minutes away. 10 steps in, the first fat raindrop hit his cheek. Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating the twisted trees like skeleton hands reaching for the sky. The path narrowed, roots curling across it like veins. That's when he noticed something. A shape up ahead. A man, just standing there. He wore a soaked trench coat and had no umbrella, no phone light, nothing. Just standing, facing Daniel. Too far to see his face, too close to ignore. "Hey, you okay?" Daniel called out. The man didn't respond, didn't move, just stood like he'd been planted in the mud. Daniel stepped off the trail slightly to walk around him. As he passed, he glanced sideways. The man's face was pale, eyes wide, and lips slightly parted like he was whispering something. Daniel froze, because the man wasn't whispering. He was mouthing Daniel's name. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. The rain came harder now, the sky roaring above, trees whipping side to side. Daniel turned and ran. His feet slammed the wet trail, slipping, nearly falling. Behind him he heard footsteps, not running, just steady, wet, slapping. He looked back. The man was still walking, not running, not chasing, just following. Every time lightning lit the trail, the man was closer. No sound, no breath, just those cold eyes and the slow, determined walk, like time didn't matter. Daniel broke out of the woods, gasping as he reached the road near his neighborhood. Cars passed, lights, life. He looked back. The trail was empty, just trees and darkness. He never saw the man again. But that night, as Daniel lay in bed, thunder booming overhead, he checked his phone. A notification from earlier popped up, one he hadn't noticed. A man found dead on Pine Hollow Trail. Identified as Daniel Mercer. Time of death, 9:03 p.m. Daniel stared at the screen. That was his name. And it was 9. This happened when I was 17, walking home from my girlfriend's house around midnight. We lived in a quiet, rural town where nothing much happened, and the only shortcut to my place was across a set of old railroad tracks behind the industrial park. That night was cold and quiet. No wind, no animals, just the sound of my footsteps on gravel. As I got to the tracks, I saw someone ahead of me. A man crouched down between the rails like he was listening for something. He looked up as I approached. Thin face, torn jacket, pale. I slowed down. "You all right?" I asked. He just stared at me and said, "Don't cross." The train's coming. There hadn't been trains on these tracks in years. They'd been shut down after some accident years back. I knew that for a fact. I looked down the tracks. Nothing. Just blackness. "Thanks, man, but I gotta get home," I said, walking past him. He didn't try to stop me, just stared. I got maybe 10 steps before I heard a metallic clank behind me. I turned. He was gone. No rustling, no running, just gone. Then, I swear to God, I heard a train whistle. It was faint, like far in the distance, but growing louder. I ran, full sprint off the tracks and down the street until I hit pavement again. No train ever came. No lights, no sound after that. But when I got home, my mum was pale as a ghost. She said she'd just had the strangest dream, that I was hit by a train on the old tracks, and a man with no eyes was standing over me. I still won't cross those tracks to this day. I've never told anyone this full story. It still makes my skin crawl, even though it's been nearly 10 years. I was 20 at the time, in college, living alone in a cheap one-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. I worked part-time at a coffee shop and usually closed the place down, walking home around 11:30 p.m. most nights. I didn't have a car, and I couldn't afford Uber or taxis all the time, so walking was just normal. There was a small park I cut through to get home. It shaved 10 minutes off my walk, and I'd used it for months without issue. The path was lined with tall trees, and while the center of the park got dark at night, the city had installed a few motion sensor lights along the trail. You'd walk a few feet, a light would blink on. It always felt kind of eerie, but not dangerous. Until one Wednesday night in late October. That night, everything felt off. The air was still, the trees weren't moving, and there was this heavy silence, like the whole world was holding its breath. I kept telling myself I was just tired, being paranoid. Still, I found myself walking faster than usual. About halfway through the trail, the first light didn't come on. I paused, waved my arms. Nothing. Just dark. The light behind me was still on, casting my shadow long across the trail. That's when I heard it. A branch snap off to my left. Not a squirrel, not a twig. A solid crack. I froze. I looked but saw nothing, just the thick trees and a picnic table off in the shadows. "Hello?" I called out. Nothing. I told myself it was probably a raccoon and kept walking, faster now. But with each step, I got the unmistakable feeling I was being watched. You know when you just know eyes are on you? That sixth sense crawled up my spine like ice water. I glanced behind me. That's when I saw him. A man. Just barely visible at the edge of the trail behind the trees. Not moving. No flashlight. No phone. Just there. I stopped, hoping maybe I was imagining it. He took one step forward, slow, deliberate, then stopped again. I didn't wait to see what he wanted. I broke into a run, As I ran, the motion lights didn't come on, not a single one. Just blackness, my footsteps, and the pounding of my own heart. Behind me I heard footsteps, not sprinting, but following. Every 10 seconds, a crunch of leaves. That night I called the police. They said, unless he was on the property or tried to follow me inside, there wasn't much they could do. For the next 3 nights he came back, always the same spot, always late, just watching. So I packed up and moved in with a friend across town. I stopped closing shifts, changed my routine, stopped walking at night, and I never saw him again. But every so often, when I'm out late or walk past a park, I feel it, that same heavy silence, that chill on the back of my neck, like someone's waiting just beyond the trees. To the stalker in the park that day, let's not meet again. This happened in 2016, when I was 23, living just outside of Pittsburgh. I was working late shifts at a printing warehouse, and had this habit of walking home through a wooded cut-through. It saved me about 20 minutes versus staying on the main road. It was quiet, tucked behind a row of old houses and a broken fence, and though a bit creepy, I never had a real reason to worry, until that one night in December. It was around 1 a.m., freezing cold, sky so dark it felt like the whole neighborhood had turned its lights off. My shift ended late, and I was exhausted. I remember debating whether to take the shortcut or not. Something felt off, but I was so tired I just wanted to get home. The cut-through was about 200 feet of narrow dirt path, with thick trees on either side, and the backs of old garages bordering the east side. Halfway through, the trail curved slightly left, and from there, you couldn't see the entrance anymore, or the exit. As I got near the curve, I noticed it, the sound of crunching gravel behind me, slow, like someone walking. I stopped. It stopped too. I turned, nothing but darkness behind me, no lights, no movement. My breath puffed out white clouds in front of me. I kept going, faster now, but again, crunch, crunch, crunch. I turned again, still nothing. Now I was panicking a little. I pulled out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam caught nothing but the path and some wet leaves. I told myself it was just an echo or an animal. Then I heard it. You shouldn't have come this way. The voice was low. Male, way too close. I whipped around and there he was, a tall man, maybe 6'3", standing just behind a tree to the right of the trail, face pale, almost grey. He wore a long coat, wet and muddy at the bottom, like he'd been standing out here for hours. His eyes, they were open way too wide. I didn't ask anything, didn't yell. I just ran. I dropped my flashlight and sprinted. My boots slipped on the wet dirt, but I didn't stop. I could hear him behind me now, not running, but walking fast, heavy, steady, like he knew I wouldn't get far. When I finally burst out of the trees onto the street, I ran straight for the first house with lights on. I banged on the door until a confused older man answered. I apologized, told him someone was following me, and he let me in without question. We called the police. They searched the trail, but there was no one there. But here's the thing that still gives me chills. The officer came back about 20 minutes later and asked if I was sure I went through the trail. I said yes. He looked at me strange and said, there were footprints, big ones, deep in the mud, like someone had been standing still in one spot for a long time. But they weren't just on the trail. I asked what he meant. He replied, they circled your footprints twice. like they were waiting for you to get there. To the man in the woods, let's not meet again. Fear doesn't go away. It just follows you home.